podcast. I'm your host, Charles Van Laux. Today, I'm going to do a little bit of a different episode. I want to go into, are you in need of recovery? Now, I've compiled some questions and thoughts here to think about and, see if that's kind of where you fall. Because, I think sometimes we can get used to a certain lifestyle, no matter how messed up it is, really, when we fully turn around and look at it, but in that moment we can get used to all kinds of stuff. So I think it's worth going over these and just kind of thinking for yourself or a loved one or whatever, just how many of these boxes you might check. So let's see, the first one that I thought about here was, have you had times when you ended up engaging in your behavior more or longer than you intended? That could be a bender, right? With alcohol, that could be, wanting to only use on a weekend, but it bleeds over into the week and you lose your job. And, right? I think there's a couple different ways you can think of that one. The next one is, have you more than once wanted to cut down or stop your behavior or tried to, but couldn't? Now, that last bit in particular is important there, but you couldn't, right? Sometimes that can be a physical dependency, right? A lot of these substances are very addictive and, they can have certain physically addictive properties, right? And that's where like a medical detox type of thing would come in and help. And so that's another good gauge to kind of think about, where you're at. Um, have you spent a lot of time engaging in your behavior or spent time recovering from the after effects of your behavior? So, another interesting one to think about there. I mean, I think in my mind, it comes down to, what is the main drive in our life, right? Just like if you think about sort of some people having a higher power type of thing as sort of the center of their life, and everything revolves around that, and we work towards that and it serves us and all that stuff. You can kind of think of it in the same way with addiction and recovery. You can get to a point where all of your actions, or most of them at least, are geared towards, hey, where's my substance, how do I find it, that kind of stuff. So I think that can be an interesting one to think about, or even the after effects of your behavior, right? Like, are you showing up to work like hungover all the time? Are you potentially going to lose your job or relationship or whatever the case is? Those can definitely be warning signs to watch out for as well. Next one on here. Have you wanted to engage your behavior so badly you couldn't think of anything else? See, that kind of comes back to that whole, dependency side, right? The physical addiction of it, the obsessive thought of, I got to get back there. I got to have another hit. I got to go to another party, whatever it is. I think that if that starts to plague our minds and really control us, that can definitely be a sign that maybe you're in need of recovery. Um, it's all about, balance, just seeing, has my life become unmanageable, right? That's another one, kind of seeing where our priorities are, people around us, how we are with them, all that kind of stuff. Um, let's see. Have you found that engaging in your behavior often interferes with taking care of your home or family, or caused career troubles or financial problems? That's another one kind of around that whole balance piece as well. What are we putting first in our life, right? Is it our family? Is it our work? Or is it our substance? Is it our friends going out and partying? Is it, kind of where is that focus? I can tell you from my own experience, that's kind of where it very quickly took a hard left for me. I thought I was just being social, right? I thought I was doing what people that age did, right? Drinking, using, experimenting, all that stuff. But I think that it took a hard left. Um, you know, a lot of the people that I was using with and all of that were taking it to a new level. And, I was there joining in. And it was something that happened very quickly, and all of a sudden life was kind of out of control. So trying to see some of those warning signs, before you're down in that pit of addiction. Um, have you continued to engage in your behavior even though it was causing trouble with your family or friends? See, that's kind of another layer there, because now we're going from social to isolated, right? We're pushing everyone away because at the end of the day, our addiction wants us isolated and using. So that's another one to keep track of. Have you given up or cut back on activities that were important or interesting to you or gave you pleasure in order to engage in your behavior? So that kind of also comes back to that whole isolating piece. And I think it also, for me, it kind of touches on identity as well, like having activities we like to do, or friends we hang out with that's outside of using and all that stuff, right? All those things that make up who we are, and what things we love to do and all that. I think sometimes those can get pushed aside very quickly, and kind of having your finger on that pulse can be important too, just to see, um, if that's where you are, then recovery could be very beneficial for sure. Um, let's see. Have you continued to engage in your behavior even though it was making you feel depressed or anxious or adding to another health problem? Um, yeah, that's definitely an important one, because, a lot of times we can be self medicating, right, for a mental health issue we might have, right, or depression, anxiety, whatever it is. And it can very quickly just kind of get out of hand and get away from us for sure. Um, and, this is an interesting one to think about, because this is even kind of, past self medicating as well, right? Because it's saying, you know, when you did you continue to use, did you continue this behavior even when it was making you feel depressed or anxious or adding to another health problem? Because that's something that's just making the situation worse, right? It's just that temporary band aid that's covering up what we really need to be focusing on. Um, and it can be hard to see what those things are sometimes. That's why I leaned pretty heavily into therapy. I still do. I find it to be an amazingly helpful tool, because, for me, it allowed some self discovery, and it allowed some new perspective around things I thought were normal, but in reality, they were not. It's kind of like if you're sitting in a burning house, right? And that's sort of an analogy for your addiction, right? But you're sitting inside of it and you are not currently on fire. So you're looking around this burning house and you're like, oh, well, I mean, I'm not on fire, so everything's fine, right? But once we get outside that house, once we turn around and look at the life we were in and all the destruction we caused and all that stuff, it can be very easy and a, sobering moment of clarity for sure, to see that house for what it was, to see that, addict life for what it was, and that can really help to separate us from that old life. Because, today, that's what's important for me, at least in my recovery, proving to myself that I'm a new person, proving to myself that I'm different, that I deserve good things in life, right? And the more I can draw a line in the sand and, approach my new life the further away from my old life I'll become, because the better my new life is, the more I craft it and the more I want to be present and have relationships I want and I'm a present for and all that kind of stuff. It's going to make this new life so much better that we don't even think about going back. So definitely important to think about those things, and even have check-ins, and just kind of get unbiased opinions, even if you can, from people around you, of like, hey man, am I fucking up right now? Like, my life kind of feels out of control. What's going on? What do you see? Right? Because what we can see in that moment, very different usually. So um have you had to engage in your behavior more than you once did to get the effect you want? Have you increased the frequency, duration, or quantity of use or engagement in the behavior? So that's kind of that tolerance building up. That's, man, I remember a situation like that. Probably one of the most impactful things to get me into recovery actually was a situation like that. I had, man, I'd gone through hell and back just to go out and find a little bag, and I'd come back, I smoked it, and I just wasn't sick anymore, right? It didn't do anything for me, nothing whatsoever, aside from just not feeling sick anymore. And I had this moment. I was currently, kind of couch surfing, and I happened to be staying with my brother at that point in time. And I had this moment where I was kind of choosing a road to go down, and I was like, man, what do I need to do? Like, do I have to, do this right and put a stake in my arm, right? Or do I need to get some help? Do I need to end this craziness and reclaim my life? And at that exact moment, when I was thinking which road to go down, my brother calls me. Talk about some divine intervention, right? Man, he calls me and he's like, hey, we need to tell people what's going on and sit them down. And, next day I sat my people down. I told them what was up and checked into treatment right after that, So it was one of the strongest experiences I've had in my life, for sure. And it helped me to know that I'm here for a reason. I was supposed to walk away from that situation on that day, because honestly, if I would have gone down that road, I don't know where that would have led. I really don't. Um, so, it's important to keep things like that close at heart, because they absolutely tie all of this together for me, you know. So, the last one I have here for you guys to consider: have you found that when you stopped engaging in your behavior for hours or days, you had withdrawal symptoms, such as trouble sleeping, shakiness, restlessness, irritability, agitation, depression, sweating, or other unwanted psychological or physical symptoms? Yeah, that's definitely a good one to keep an eye on, And I think that if you do, again, let me just preface all this. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. But absolutely, if you are detoxing off of anything, go to a detox center, do a medical detox, do it safely, do it the right way. Okay. You're going to be more comfortable. You're going to be glad you did it that way. And it's going to be safer, because there are actually two withdrawals that can actually kill you. One is alcohol, surprisingly enough, because it's legal, right? So weird. And then the other one is Xanax, like, um, those kinds of anti-anxiety medications. So that and alcohol, they can actually both give you seizures if you just quit cold turkey, and it can kill you. So be smart, do it the right way. And, I would say, if this is for yourself and you're kind of gauging where you're at in life, or if it's for a loved one, I would say sit down and try to attach some numbers to this, right? Maybe give yourself a 1 or a 0. 1 being yes, this question that you've mentioned on here is applicable to me, right? Or 0, no, it's not. Add up your score, see where you're at, and I think that'll give you a good basis just for you to see where you're at in life. Because I can tell you for myself, it was really important for me to out myself to my family and people around me before I got into recovery. I had to out myself, right? I had to tell people what was going on. I had to reach out for help. And, I think that going through that process, being, having some kind of say over that process, being a part of the planning of what treatment center, all that kind of stuff, right? It made me feel like I was making a choice for the betterment of my life, right? It wasn't necessarily someone saying like you have to do this or that or whatever. Now that can be helpful too, right? With the right perspective of, hey, you're right, man. Look, I got so many of these questions with a 1 or whatever. So yeah, I probably should go to treatment. Um, but it's not something to be scared of either. If you're thinking about treatment in any form, really, it's led by people who have been there. They're very compassionate, nice, therapeutic types of people. They're just there to help. Like I remember before I went into treatment, I was scared. I was terrified. Honestly, I was. And I just because I didn't know what to expect. I was going to an inpatient kind of treatment center, a rehab as they call it. And I had it built up in my mind like, oh, I was going to be walking into a padded room and it'll put me in a straitjacket and lock down and blah blah blah. But it's not the case. That's not a legal thing for a drug treatment center to do any of that. It doesn't happen. So it was good for me to experience that and kind of get past that part of it, because the reality was I was nervous when I went there, right? But the nurse who was checking me in and the other people who were working there, they could tell I was nervous, and they were talking to me about their own experiences through addiction and into recovery and where they're at now. And I saw in that moment that I was with my people. These people were going to help me get my life back. So if there's any concerns, fears, questions, whatever you might have, feel free to drop a comment. Or if you'd like to do it a little more privately, I'll put my email down in the description. And yeah, feel free to send them over. We can chat and answer any questions you might have about it, or whatever, because it is a really big commitment, right? It's the hardest yet most impactful thing I've ever done in my life. It gave me my life back, and it's not easy, right? But we can do it. We can all do it together. It just takes dedication. You got to take what you are willing to do for your substance and add to it, and you can get into recovery. So it's absolutely possible, right? I was addicted to uh, heroin, pain pills, Xanax, all that stuff. Um, I dealt with it for 15 years, and yeah, I got clean when I was 26. Never relapsed. I'll have 10 years February 27th. So it's possible. Relapse does not have to be part of your story, but if it is, it's okay, right? As long as you learn from it, as long as you grow from it, and use those things that dragged you down, use those as learning examples, so that you can strengthen those parts for later, for the next time. But it's absolutely possible. And there's lots of stories like mine out there, so um, you're not alone in this. And just know that, we can make it out of this. 100% we can make it out of this. Just get a good support system around you, right? The more help you can have, the better. Totally. Right. Whether that's a therapist, a coach, a treatment center, an IOP, a sober living, like whatever it might be. It's all about piecing together that equation of what's going to help you in your recovery, right? Like if a big barrier for you getting into recovery is, man, I live with my friends and we all use together all the time. Maybe sober living is a good option then, right? Because then you're removing that big barrier of being around it constantly with people who normalize it and make it social almost, So there's always a way out. It's always a way out. And, we're here. There's a whole community, you know. So yeah, use these questions as a guide just for yourself, for your own knowledge, and invest in your recovery. See what you could do to improve your life, because if you can, want to show up to improve and want to grow in your recovery, you can go a long ways for sure. So yeah, leave any comments, questions, whatever down below, or as I said, I'll have my email. Send them to me, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay. So take care, and we'll see you on the next one.